Hi guys, welcome to week three. It's titled "Planning Your Business Message." So it's pretty straightforward in the sense that you are going to be asked to engage in intellectual activities and questions um, that prepare you for writing your business message. So in the first 2 weeks, we talked about building habits, right? And what are the habits we have when we compose a message, specifically business message. Um, and this week, you're going to go pretty in depth to kind of think about the various things you need to think about even before you even put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, whatever it is, right? So the argument I'm making here, that there's two levels, right? So there's the work you have to do, and then the argument that I'm making if you think about what my purpose as a teacher is. The argument I'm making to you is that a significant amount of thought has to be put into the business message before you even compose it. And secondarily, that a lot of the issues that students have, or a lot of problems that arise during the writing process, happen because a lot of, or not enough thought wasn't put into the kind of pre-composition stages, right, or the planning stages about a business message. The caveat of that, of course, is that um, you're not going to be able to have enough time to do this with every single business message, right? You're not going to be able to do an audience analysis or an audience profile sheet or think about the different mediums that you can choose, right? You're not going to be able to have the luxury, or you don't have the luxury to do that each specific time. And I get that. Maybe for the bigger projects, but not necessarily for every single email or every single paragraph you have to write. Um, However, that doesn't mean that we can't go in depth and think about the different habits and the different steps that can go into a successful business message. So the questions here kind of move from the general to the specific. So it starts with asking you what's the general purpose of your message, what's the specific purpose of your message. It asks you to think about who your audience is on a very detailed level, almost do this kind of what we just call an audience profile, right, or an audience analysis. Um, and then kind of moving into the finer elements of the actual business message itself, right? So, from my perspective, and from people in rhetoric and writing studies, is any successful composition of a message uh, is is so because there was close attention paid to the audience, right? And that your message is really only as good as really only as good as how much attention you put into thinking about who is receiving the message, right? So for many of you who have experience in writing or even PR or in different jobs or careers, you know this to be true. You can't just send a message out there and just kind of be like, hey, hope it sticks, right? You have to do research. You have to do demographic research. You conduct focus groups if you do PR or if you do advertising or something like that. So that also happens in the composition of messages. Um, so all the questions are asking you to do that, and then it's going to have you structure and organize the business message uh, in accordance to the audience itself, right? So that kind of picture at the top of the worksheet, where it's kind of a symbol that's kind of bringing in all these aspects of writing, like audience and purpose and text and context. Um, so you have to think about what your message is in relation to who the audience is, and then that's going to determine how you structure it, right? So, and this is how genres start to emerge, where there is no gospel, there's no formula for how to write a good piece of writing. How you decide to organize it, how you decide to chunk it, what headings you decide to put in, what style and tone you choose is all dependent upon what your audience and what your purpose is. And that's a very frustrating answer because it would be nice if we could have a nice input output formula and just kind of put information in and it comes out successfully in this new kind of polished form. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. Each specific writing task you have is always going to be distinct from any other writing task you've had, because even if the audience is the same or your purpose is kind of relatively the same, then the timing is different, right? So you have an established relationship versus not established relationship, for example. So there's kind of all these moving parts. So what I want to do is I'm taking these kind of brief moments. This class is essentially taking this brief moment where you're composing a message and it's expanding it to kind of unpack all the smaller granular decisions that you're making in a composition. And I really want you to focus on those because mental attention paid towards those is going to be how you're going to improve your writing throughout. So if you realize throughout this week, for example, that you don't necessarily pay that much attention to structure and organization. For example, how sections logically flow into the other, but it's just kind of more how they exist in your head, right? So it's not what is the best way that it's ordered in my head? The question is now, what is the best way I can order these to make sure that my audience understands the message as effectively and efficiently and as well as possible? So that's what I'll say about the worksheet. In terms of the business message itself, I don't like over-determining the parameters of the actual message itself. They will range from very, they'll range in length, right? I don't want to over-determine and say it has to be 4 pages, it has to be 5 pages, because your genres are all different. So what I will say is you'll get into, however you decide, however long you decide the document to be, will be kind of correlated to how much feedback and how much value you get out of the class, right? So if you just say, I'm just going to submit a half-page thing, okay, you can do that. You could submit a half-page thing, whether it's kind of like a promotional material for the Navy or whatever it is, right? Or it's just a memo or an email or something like that. You could certainly do that if you want. But do keep in mind that that's going to limit the amount of feedback that I can give you on your work. For example, if you only do half a page or only provide me with a finite number of words or sentences or style or formatting or organizational techniques, then you're only going to get that in return from me to kind of help you in your writing. So it really depends on how much you want to put into the class. I don't want to over-determine it or under-determine it. The only thing I'll say is stay away from 20 or 30-page reports, right? In terms of expecting feedback on each single page. You can certainly do a lengthy report like that, but I'm not going to be able to comment on each and every single page. So the type of feedback that I'll be giving, just so you guys know in advance, is it's going to be in line with the questions that you see on the worksheets, right? So those questions aren't just kind of chosen out of nowhere, and they're not really they have meaning behind them, right? In the sense that these will be how I'm commenting on your actual documents themselves. But they're also framing the way you interpret a business message in a very specific way that I'm encouraging you to do. So if you are kind of on the fence about what business message to do, that's where email comes in. So if you say, Dr. Richards, I want to do this specific business message, I have this project that I have to do and I have to create a feasibility report that's 5 pages, I want to choose that, that's fine. I'm acknowledging that the timeline of this class isn't necessarily going to align with the timeline of something that you're writing necessarily. So it could be hypothetical. It could be something that you're starting now, but it's not necessarily due till August or September. So the timelines are kind of all wonky. It's very unlikely that you're going to have something like, oh, I have this class right now and I have to write this thing right now and it's all due on the same dates and everything like that. But I do want you to choose something that is actually something that you will compose for your workplace. Not have composed, but will compose for the workplace. Don't do CVs and resumes and cover letters because we're going to do that later. And don't really do emails either because we're going to cover that stuff later. So do something, a real actual thing that you are going to write, that you're writing right now, or that you know for sure you will have to write. Or it could be something that you know that you'll have to write in a job a few months in advance, or something that you know you're going to have to get good at down the road, and you just create a hypothetical one. So the document's relationship to reality is going to vary for sure. So if you have any questions about choosing the specific business message, don't hesitate. But again, it's very free. It's very open. You guys are in so many different fields, doing so many different things. So choose something that you think would be useful for you and that you would want my feedback on moving forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with and reading through your business messages. So the worksheet is the only thing that you have to do this week, so you can focus just on that. And I just want you to put a lot of time into thinking about the business message and deconstructing it. If it seems like, wow, I don't really need 6 or 7 days to do that, right? That's intentional. I'm trying to slow down every single decision you're making in the composition process. So that's very intentional. So have a good week, and I look forward to seeing your ideas.